Alright guys, here we go with our Midwest Great Plains notes for today in U.S. Geography. We're going to go through this stuff. Please make this is our brand new unit for this week. You can grab the lights for me, please, for those that are in class. So we are talking this week about the Midwest and the Great Plains. What's cool about this region is it is actually the region that borders our state of Michigan. So that's kind of nice that we finally get to talk a little bit about ourselves. Geography of the region, states in this region. If you would like to write down the postal abbreviations, I will give them to you. This is a pretty big region, really, when you talk about the number of states. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 states in this region. So just in sheer number of states, there's a lot here. So postal abbreviations for these Midwest Great Plains states. Ohio is OH, Michigan MI, Indiana IN, Illinois IL, Wisconsin WI, Minnesota MN, Iowa IA, Missouri MO. Kids sometimes ask me, why is Missouri M.O., Mr. Bazem? Shouldn't it be M.I.? Well, Michigan was a state first, so Michigan got the M.I. Easiest way to remember Missouri, if you look, and you can see it better on a different map, but Missouri kind of has this little chunk that sticks out here, just like a little rectangle. I call that the big toe of Missouri because it almost looks like its big toe is sticking out. So you can refer to Missouri, obviously M.O. is Big Mo, and his big toe. I know, terrible dad jokes already for you this morning. That's true, you have heard worse out of me too. North Dakota is ND. South Dakota, which I was supposed to head to with my dad 2 weeks ago, but that didn't come to fruition. South Dakota SD, Nebraska NE, and Kansas KS for Kansas. Go ahead, question.
I missed the first ones before Minnesota.
Before Minnesota, sure, I'll go back through those. Ohio is OH, Michigan MI, Indiana IN, Illinois IL, and Wisconsin WI. Not going to be a surprising thing for you all because, again, being residents of the state of Michigan, you kind of already know this, but we do have 4 Great Lakes that do border our region, and 4 Great Lakes border Michigan itself. Those Great Lakes are Erie, Huron, Lake Michigan, and Lake Superior. The only Great Lake that does not border this region is going to be Lake Ontario, which is actually quite close to the region, but not quite there. So for us here in the state of Michigan, we have Erie that borders us just a little bit to the southeast part of the state. Lake Huron directly to the east. Lake Michigan, of course, to the west, which is the closest one to where we live. And if you go up north into the Upper Peninsula, just north of the Upper Peninsula, you'd find Lake Superior. What's kind of neat is we, of course, living in Michigan, a lot of you have probably been to some of these Great Lakes or, will probably at some point in your lifetime, but a lot of people outside Midwest Great Plains never even see the Great Lakes, so kind of a neat thing that we are just kind of used to here in Michigan. Question over there?
Want to know something else that's cool?
What's that?
They're giving us beef dippers today.
We had a student here announce that we're going to have beef dippers for lunch. Woo! For those of you at home, I hope that you have a nice lunch as well. The country of Canada, of course, is going to border this region to the north, or in some cases, in the instance of Michigan, also just a little bit to the east. If you want to go to Canada from where we live, the closest part is to go down by Detroit and cross over in Windsor, which is actually a little bit southeast of where we are. But Canada does border us to the north, and that will be one of the things that you're labeling on your maps this Thursday. A lot of you, by the way, did turn in your maps last week. I appreciate that. If you haven't yet done so, please make sure you're emailing that to me if you are an at-home learner right now. You see the little label I have at the bottom there, the Big Ten Conference. That's what Michigan State and Michigan are a part of. I included that little graphic because a lot of states in this region have Big Ten teams. Now, not the entire Big Ten Conference is in this area, but a lot of the teams are, and so I thought I'd kind of include that so you guys could see that. For my 3 students here, thumbs up if you're good to go to the next slide. We've got 3 thumbs up, so here we go, at-home learners. Major cities, I know, there's a lot there. You 3 at home, though, I sent these notes to you as well, so you do have these, so if you need to pull them up as you're going through stuff, that's fine. So lots of big cities in this region. I chose for the most part to try to only include 1, maybe 2 big cities for each state. So in Michigan, of course, Detroit is our biggest city. Grand Rapids, which obviously is only an hour from us, is quite a big city. That's the 2nd biggest city in Michigan. Biggest cities in Ohio, we have Cleveland in the northern part of Ohio and Cincinnati right at the very southern part of the state. My brother lives in Indianapolis, Indiana. Later this week, I'm going to get to share some of Indianapolis with you, or have my brother share some of Indianapolis with you.
He's coming.
He is not coming. However, last marking period for my U.S. geography students, he actually made a little video for them about downtown Indianapolis, giving them a bit of a tour. So remind me, and I'll make sure I post that for you all this week too. Chicago, Illinois is going to be the biggest city of the region, and it's also the 3rd largest city in the United States as well. Milwaukee was a big city. If you watched the 2020 election coverage, there was all kinds of information coming out of Milwaukee. Wisconsin, of course, was a big swing state in the election, and lots of news was coming out of Milwaukee. Minneapolis, Minnesota, biggest city in the state of Minnesota. One really cool thing about Minneapolis, my wife and I visited there with Hunter when I think he was about 2 or 3. And what's cool about the city is you can actually, if you fly into the city, in their airport, they have a little monorail system. So basically like a little trolley that will take you all around the city. And so you never actually, my understanding is, I've never done this, but if you fly into Minneapolis and you're at their airport, in order to get downtown, you just take the little monorail. In other words, you don't have to rent a car, you don't have to take an Uber or a taxi or a Lyft ride or anything like that. You can literally just get around the city that way. So definitely something I'd like to do at some point. St. Louis, Missouri, biggest city in Missouri. Des Moines in Iowa. Omaha in Nebraska. Wichita in Kansas, and again, these are all just the biggest cities in their state. Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and Fargo, North Dakota. So all big cities throughout this region, and there are many, many more. As I mentioned, Chicago, the biggest city of the region, also the 3rd biggest city in the United States, behind only New York City and Los Angeles. The tower you see on the right-hand side there is the Willis Tower, otherwise known as the Sears Tower. That is the tallest building in the United States. I've been up in the tower before with my wife, and I've actually been up with friends, so I've actually been in this structure a couple times. It's massive. If you are afraid of heights, this probably wouldn't be your favorite place to go. It is a pretty cool building to go into. You can definitely see a lot of the city of Chicago and really the entire surrounding area if you ever go up in there. Yes?
I had like a skyscraper like that, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I make the floors like glass.
No,
Like the
no.
screen, like if you step on it, it does that crack thing.
Yeah, I've seen those before. We had a student talk about glass floors. There is actually a glass floor in the Willis Tower, and you can walk out onto it. I did. I don't like heights. I didn't stay there for too long. I did want to do it just to say I'd done it, but I was a little nervous. I won't lie to you.
Is it thick?
It is very thick. Yes, it is safe. What freaked me out is I was just kind of standing there with my wife. A kid about you guys' age literally kind of ran up to the glass and like jumped and stomped on it as hard as he could because he wanted to see how strong it was, and it just kind of freaked me out.
Why would you do that?
I don't know. It wasn't something I would want to do.
Yeah, stop it.
Detroit is known as the Motor City, although they've lost a significant part of their population over the years when a lot of the factories left Detroit, but still the biggest city that we have in Michigan, still known somewhat for its auto industry, and so Detroit's still obviously known as the Motor City. St. Louis is going to be known as the gateway to the West. This is where Lewis and Clark started their journey. And we'll talk more about Lewis and Clark in U.S. history class this year, but St. Louis is a big part of what we're going to learn about when we discuss their journey as explorers. If you are distance learning with us this week, I appreciate you tuning in and listening with us and making sure you have these notes down. Some of you I know haven't turned in some work from last week. Please just do that as soon as you can. I'll be looking at things throughout the week and getting them graded and trying to get them back to you guys as quickly as possible. Quiz scores were great last week for those who've taken their quiz. If you haven't yet done that, please make sure you're getting on Edmodo and taking care of business. Again, I'm not super concerned as we roll through this pandemic with due dates, but please just do the best that you can. And I will make sure I get things graded as soon as I can. You guys need an extra minute, those in class? Good.
Came slow. Silence. No. Gone. Okay, good.
And off we go. This one's a little bit less on the note-taking for everybody. Climate of the region. I've actually put this picture up before, and kids are like, oh, yeah, that looks about right for winter. It really does in Michigan.
Not from Michigan. Last year was trash.
As you guys are well aware, nothing going to be earth-shattering to you here because you live in this region, but the climate in this area, we do have mild summers. In other words, yes, they're hot, but they don't typically get scorching hot like what we've talked about happening in Florida or Texas or places like that. And we often have cold winters. We obviously are just coming up on the winter season as we record this on November 16th, 2020. We're definitely coming up on a winter season, and we do expect it to be cold. No question about that. Great Plains states, of course, are going to be more susceptible to severe snowstorms. So the Midwest part of this region is going to kind of be the eastern half. The western half of the region is going to be called the Great Plains because there's a lot of area, especially out in the Nebraska, the Dakotas, that's going to be very just flat land. And so we call that part of this region the Great Plains. Because of all of that flat land, or a large portion of it being flat land in the Great Plains, they're really susceptible to severe snowstorms because of all the drifting that occurs. We've had a windy last couple of days in Michigan. We know that living in Michigan winters, when the wind really gets a blowing on those back roads, there's not much we can do because there's just lots of drifts. It creates, blowing the snow into the roads, and of course we've got, more stuff to deal with. Only got 3 of you in person today, but anybody actually like the snow in Michigan in the winter? 2 of the 3 of you. Okay.
Snow is awesome.
I'm a big time no there. I don't like snow.
I mean, I like the cold.
I don't like the cold. I don't like anything that goes with it. The only thing I like about winter is basketball season. And beyond that, that's about it.
See my
for
fingers?
me.
This is what my fingers look like. Just feel like it's snow. Gone.
Yeah, it is cold. I'm the one in charge of shoveling at our house, and it's not my favorite job. It's a good little workout for me, but it's not my favorite job.
I get a play on your lifestyle. There's 3 of us.
Some history for you of this region. number of different historical things I want to point out to you. Some of you might be aware of some of these things, but some are kind of brand new as well. The first thing I'm going to tell you is the picture there, and this is going to shock you. In 1969, so a little over 50 years ago, the Cuyahoga River in downtown Cleveland, Ohio, caught on fire. Let me say that again because I know that's going to make no sense to you. 50 years ago, over 50 years ago, the Cuyahoga River in downtown Cleveland actually caught on fire. Now you're probably thinking, huh?
Was it from a boat?
How does a river get on fire? No, the actual river was on fire.
So there's no oil.
If you take a look here, this is water, these are flames. Now, kids always ask, how in the world, Mr. Bazem, did a river actually catch on fire? Well, good question. The river was so incredibly polluted. There was a spark of some description, a fire, I believe, on a boat of some sort. Now, you would think, okay, yeah, there could be a fire on a boat. That makes sense. But obviously, you would think that the water surrounding it would, put it out. But the river water was so incredibly polluted from the toxins and chemicals in some of the nearby factories that they dumped into the river that the river itself caught on fire. Now, as you might imagine, people looked at that and go, oh, there's a river on fire. That's not normal. We should do something about that, obviously. And so a lot of the big environmental push in the United States to not dump chemicals into rivers and to really try to avoid polluting and pollution in general really started to catch fire, so to speak, pun intended. And so things became a lot better, and that's why we have a lot of the environmental policies that we have today is because of what came out of the Cuyahoga River. Last summer in 2019, this pre-pandemic, my dad, my brother, and I attended the Major League Baseball All-Star Game in Cleveland, so we got to walk right by the Cuyahoga River, and I loved telling my dad and my brother the story of, hey, 50 years ago, that river was on fire. So that led to some good discussion. We went to a restaurant to eat, and we were walking around the city, and I always I thought about asking people, hey, river still on fire? You guys ever put that out? But I figured people would be annoyed or not know what I'm talking about, so I didn't do it.
Shut up.
I know, I failed all of you, didn't I?
One look at the jackass gun right on the side.
Second bullet point there, again, living in Michigan, I'm sure some of you know a little bit about this. In the late 1800s, the early 1900s, Henry Ford begins to produce in mass the automobile or the car by way of the assembly line. Now, Henry Ford doesn't necessarily invent the assembly line, but what he does is utilize this process in the making of automobiles, and he could really produce cars exceptionally fast, and that is a big reason why the Michigan economy did so well, especially in the early part of the 1900s. Ford and General Motors and Chrysler, these three big automobile companies, are still all located in the Detroit area. And so this Henry Ford getting his start with the assembly line and having so much success kind of led to Detroit becoming the Motor City. I mentioned to you my brother lives in downtown Indianapolis. This is where the Indy 500 takes place, one of the biggest events in auto racing. They have Indy cars that ride around a track for 500 miles at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. My brother gave my wife, Hunter, and I a tour of it. This was before Drake was born a few years ago in the summer, and it was really cool. We actually got to go out on the track at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and we got to ride around it on this little trolley. I've never been to a NASCAR event. I've never been to an IndyCar event. Before the pandemic started, was talking with my brother about, hey, I want to go to the Indy 500 because it is one of the biggest events in all of sports. But obviously, with the pandemic shutting down crowds, I still haven't went. So one of the places I would like to go after COVID is taken care of is I really want to go down to Indy, visit my brother, and go to the Indy 500 because I just think that would be a really neat experience. One person we'll talk a ton more about later on this year in U.S. history class is going to be Abraham Lincoln. He's from Illinois, and the state actually gets its nickname, the Land of Lincoln, because they kind of claim him as one of their native people. Lincoln, of course, one of the most famous presidents in U.S. history. He's on the penny, he's on the $5 bill, and again, we'll talk way more about him. Really cool place if you've never been in the United States is Mount Rushmore, which is located in Rapid City, South Dakota. It has the faces of 4 former United States presidents: George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Abraham Lincoln, and Teddy Roosevelt. So pretty cool thing. If you ever get a chance to go through South Dakota, I'd recommend stopping and checking that out. And then last piece of history, the Republican Party, the same Republican Party we have today that President Trump is obviously a member of that party, that started in Ripon, Wisconsin in the 1850s. So this same Republican Party that we have today did begin in the Midwest in Wisconsin. The 3 of you in class today, I think, are really going to like the next slide.
Like that they're fighting water with water.
Yeah, fighting water with water. Well, not water with water, but they're fighting the fire water with water. You're correct.
Well, imagine having squirt gun that shoots fire water.
One of the restaurants we were in, because we stopped at one for lunch and one for dinner, it was super interesting because like there was a photo of the river on fire, and I just thought, man, if that's what your city's known for, like that's kind of sad. My brother always likes to make fun of Cleveland. He says in fact, it's often known as the mistake by the lake because it's right off the shores of Lake Erie. So Cleveland often gets a bad reputation for whatever reason. I think this probably has something to do with it. Next slide, we're talking about the culture of the region. I'll tell you, this makes me very hungry just looking at these pictures.
Cheese on the pizza.
We'll talk about that pizza. Give me just a second. So the cuisine of the area, talking about the food specifically, Kansas City, Missouri is known for its barbecued ribs. My wife Hunter and I went there before Drake was born on vacation as well. And oh my goodness, their barbecue was fantastic. Some of the very best I've ever had. I don't know if you all are fans of barbecue or those of you at home are fans of barbecue, but if you are and you are ever in the Kansas City area, go downtown and you will find a whole bunch of really good BBQ restaurants. Flint, Michigan, about an hour and a half from us, hour and 45 minutes, is famous for their Coney dogs. Those are chili cheese dogs. I don't get mine with onions because onions are gross, but I know some of you actually like onions, which is a mystery to me, but
They're good.
ugh,
They're deep fried.
no offense, but ugh when it comes to onions. But those are very, very good. Let's see. The state of Wisconsin is known very much for their dairy products, specifically their milk and their cheese. In fact, the NFL team from Wisconsin, the Packers, they are known as the Packers because they are cheese packers. And many of their fans will wear cheese heads. So you know when grown men are wearing giant styrofoam heads of cheese that they are very proud. I'm not saying just your dad. I owned one when I was a kid. Okay, so I'm not hating on anybody. But that is definitely a sign that people are very much behind their dairy industry when you wear a giant block of cheese on your head to support your local football team. Michigan's Upper Peninsula, as I'm sure many of you know, and many of you probably stopped and had these before, is known as for their pasties. Pasties are basically like if any of you ever had a calzone or a pizza pocket, basically they're oftentimes there's meat, there's mashed potatoes, there's vegetables, there's gravy, all inside these pasties. Did you like it? If you ever go to the UP, you guys should definitely try them. It's kind of what the Upper Peninsula is really known for.
Hey, Mr. B,
Yes.
you ever been up north?
I've been up north many times, although I haven't been recently. I think when the pandemic finally lifts a little bit, I think that's where we're going to take our next vacation. Having the little guys, we don't want to go too far. But my kids have never been to the UP, so definitely something I want to take them to.
During the summer I went there, they closed down a taffy shop that was there.
Yeah, I could believe that.
Hey, your son goes on top of a rock, make sure he doesn't test his glass.
Thank you for that. Chicago, which I know a lot of you guys are all about this picture. This is deep dish pizza from Chicago, which is probably the food that Chicago is most known for. I absolutely love pizza, and specifically deep dish. I used to, for about 5 years, try to make a trip once a summer to Chicago to go watch some baseball games, or my wife and I would end up on vacation there. And my favorite thing is to just go get a deep dish pizza. Now, deep dish pizzas, so you're aware, take a long time to cook, like an hour. So I figured that out after the first couple of times. And so now I'm smart enough to know if I want to eat at 7, I better order that thing about 5:45, 6 o'clock, so I can be ready to eat it at 7. Because if you are hungry and you've ordered a deep dish pizza and you're sitting there thinking about how delicious it's going to be and you have to wait for an entire hour, it is painful. So try the deep dish if you're ever in Chicago, but make sure you order early. Many parts of the country, people talk about soda, but obviously here in the Midwest, we call it
Pop.
pop. That's how we know it.
You don't want to go get some soda down the gas station?
Lastly here, Midwesterners, people from this region, are known as having lots of family values and being friendly neighbors. We obviously see that right here in Montcalm County with our community being so involved in everything and rallying to support one another when people need help, when tragedies happen. One of the best parts about living in a small town or just being a Midwesterner in general is how you're treated by others is often pretty good. And we often see the beauty of that here in the Midwest.
Of course, when you talk about families, Thomas Sawyer, like.
That pizza does look very, very appetizing. There's no question about it.
So
Yes.
have you seen that movie when what was it about? It was something about it was a country about soda pop. This guy went to a bar to get this kid soda pop. You know those old bottles
Mm-hmm.
like that with the flip things?
Okay.
My mom has one.
That's interesting.
I know.
My grandma owns 3 things of glass.
Those of you in here, we thumbs up on the next slide?
Yeah.
Thumbs up. Perfect. Just 2 more slides left for those of you here and those at home. Some interesting facts. The city of Chicago almost completely burned to the ground back in the 1870s. So this is, 150 years ago, basically, because of a barn fire. No one knows exactly how the fire started. Some people believe that a cow literally kicked over this lantern and it started this massive fire and literally burned a significant portion of what's now our 3rd biggest city in the United States. What's kind of unique is you wouldn't think that because there was a big fire, people would be excited about that or use it as a positive in any way. But the soccer team, there's a Major League Soccer team located in Chicago, and they call themselves the Chicago Fire, which I think is kind of weird. You wouldn't see Cleveland going, hey, the Chicago River fires. I mean, maybe they would, but I would hope not.
Imagine the Packers being called the cheese blocks.
The pictures you see on the left here, the bottom, and then this one and this one, these are pictures of the St. Louis, Missouri Gateway Arch. As I mentioned to you, Lewis and Clark, which we'll talk about in U.S. history class, start their journey out west from St. Louis, and they have this giant arch structure in downtown St. Louis. You can actually walk underneath of it, and what's cool is you can actually go up into it as well, which is this picture that you see here. My wife and I went before we had kids. There's basically like this rounded little hill in the upper part of it, and you can look down here at the city of St. Louis. You can see the Gateway Arch, kind of the shape of it, and here's me. When you actually go up into the arch, it is not a stairwell that you take. It's kind of a little elevator, almost shaped like an egg, and it will take you all the way up, and then when you get to the top, you can kind of walk around just this top part of the arch. It's really cool because you get a neat view of downtown St. Louis and the river that flows right next to the city as well. So definitely a neat place to go if you ever have the opportunity. I would recommend it. First presidential primaries always take place in Iowa. So when the Democrats were running Joe Biden, and he was competing against other Democrats to see who would run against President Trump. The first presidential primaries always take place in Iowa, so a lot of times it just sets the stage politically of, okay, who do we think could end up getting the nomination for the Republicans or the Democrats, depending on who's being or who's up for election in a given year. Nation's two longest rivers are definitely things that you're going to be labeling on your maps Thursday. We have the Mississippi River and the Missouri running through this region. In fact, both of these rivers basically running right next to St. Louis, Missouri, which is why St. Louis has become this gateway, because it's kind of where the rivers converge, basically. For those of you that like shopping, that's what this picture is here. I know it's kind of grainy and blurry, so I'll explain it to you. This is the Mall of America, which is the biggest mall in the United States. It is massive. I've shopped there a couple of times. I'm not a big-time shopper, but I'll tell you, you can get a really good workout in just walking through this massive mall. Basically, you name a store that you've seen at a mall before, and it's probably there. Yes, sir?
Those like roller coasters?
That is a roller coaster inside of the Mall of America. It's that big that it has its own roller coaster. I did not ride it, no. I was with my wife, and Hunter, I think, like I said, was like 2, and so riding a roller coaster with a 2-year-old probably wasn't going to happen. And obviously it was just my wife and I, so I would have had to ride solo. And I didn't want to ride solo. I'd rather ride with somebody. So definitely something, as my kids get older, I would definitely love to do that, but I want to make sure it's something that they can do with us. Cam?
Do they have a GameStop?
I'm certain they would have a GameStop.
Okay. I'm going there now.
Oh, it's big.
Yeah, but I've already rented buying places.
The GameStop in Greenville rips you off a lot.
No.
How?
They charge you too much for games.
One more slide to go here.
I bought a $60 game and I returned it for $20. Okay.
Thumbs up if you guys here are ready to move on, or thumbs down if you need an extra second. Okay. Last slide for today, or last slide of notes, I should say. I do have some more pictures for you on the next slide, but this is the last one with actual notes. Interesting places. We already talked about the Willis Tower, once known as the Sears Tower, being the tallest building in the United States, located in downtown Chicago. Mount Rushmore, I mentioned as well, the 4 presidents carved into the rock there: Lincoln, George Washington, Teddy Roosevelt, and Thomas Jefferson. Cedar Point, I know, is a place that some of you have been to pre-pandemic. It's an amusement park in Sandusky, Ohio. Never been there post-pandemic, I'd encourage you to go, especially if you're somebody who likes roller coasters and amusement parks. It's a really fun place. Of course, we talked about St. Louis already, home of the Gateway Arch. I don't remember what it cost my wife and I to go up into the arch, but I don't think it was too much money. It was definitely worth it just to get the view and to say we'd been in the arch itself. I'll tell you, I was looking through as I was going to go through all of this with you all, and I realized, man, I don't really have any information for them on Kansas. So I just looked up interesting things in Kansas, and I couldn't not include this. Why this is a thing, I will never know. But Cawker City, Kansas, their claim to fame: they have the world's largest ball of twine.
Is that what that is?
Yes. You can see the guy pictured here. Why anybody says, hey, you know what I'm going to do? You know what I want our city to be named for, or what to be known for? Let's get a giant ball of twine. Let's make it a world record ball of twine, and let's put it in our city so people can stop and look at it.
How long that take?
A long time.
You get it, read it.
Now, I don't know about all of you, but if I'm driving by Cawker City, Kansas, I don't know if I'm pulling over. Or if I am, I'm going to take a picture and go, really? This is what you have to offer? Can you imagine the advertisements? Come to our city and see our giant ball of twine.
That that inspired me. Now I'm gonna make a 1,000-pound penny.
Maybe Stanton and Sydney and Sheridan will start trying to beat. No, I don't think so. Last thing what I have there, and I encourage you at home to do this as well, try to find different places in each one of the states in this region, and then you can just kind of add those into your notes. Not something you're doing for points, but again, kind of exploring this region will help prepare you for what we're learning just the rest of the week. So definitely some good things to check out in your last few minutes of class time here. You guys in class need an extra minute on this, or are you good here?
We're good.
Just going to show you a quick few pictures here. These are all places that I've been to in the Midwest. This one right here is the Willis Tower, the glass floor I was telling you about. I'm looking straight down at the city. Made me nervous. As you all know, I really like sports, so this is Wrigley Field in Chicago. This is Ohio State's football stadium in Columbus, Ohio. This is Notre Dame Stadium in South Bend, Indiana. My wife and I in downtown Chicago at what's called Cloud Gate. You guys may have heard of it. Is the giant bean there. This is the actual Gateway Arch in St. Louis. I showed you the pictures. My wife and I were here at the top, and again, it has this little egg-shaped elevator that takes you all the way up, and then you can walk around this area. This is the Willis Tower view from the street. I took this, I believe, actually across the street, because if you get close to the building, you can't even, see the top of it, so to speak, when you're taking a picture, if that tells you anything.
How far away were you from the building?
I believe I was just across the street when I took the picture, but again, you can see just how high up it goes. This is the Cuyahoga River where the fire occurred. I believe it was actually right in this area. As you can see, the mistake by the lake, the fire is out. And then Hard Rock Cafe in Cleveland, obviously, is a big tourist place as well. Those of you at home, if you have questions, please feel free to email me or give me a call on my school phone, 989-831-2262. I know a lot of you are distance learning, and we want to make sure that I'm able to help you as best I can. Make sure you're getting things turned in if you're behind, and we'll very soon. Have a great day.